motion for accepting the agenda with the amended agenda? Or you didn't put that in? Okay, okay. That didn't get put in, so it won't be done tonight. Okay, do I have a mover? Councillor Knott, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. Go ahead, Councillor Sight.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the attention of council that on the bills and accounts 4.211, there's a check number 502250 that's made out to my spouse, Tiffany Sight, for reimbursement for daycare expenses. That she's a part-time employee there, so I will not be on that particular check. I will not be acting as, or I won't be making a motion or approving. And 7.1, as though it's not a pecuniary interest, it is a conflict of interest. I am a member of the Wingham Hitman softball team at this point, so I won't be discussing any of that or making accepting anything there.
Thank you. Okay. Point 4, the consent agenda. And we need a motion for that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 4.11, 4.12, and further that all other consent items save and except for check 502250 item 4.21 be received for information. Do I have a mover? Councillor Knott, Councillor Ritzman-Taminga.
I have a question about one item.
Okay.
Item 4.2.2, concerning the development charges. It seems to me that that fund is growing very, very slowly, and I'm wondering if we should be. I know it's reviewed every 5 years, I believe, but after but some 7 years, the total accumulation is just over $60,000. If we had any kind of significant development, that would not go very far. I'm wondering if it should be reviewed and perhaps increase the rates, or maybe even consider adding to residential development as well. Just a question that I think we ought to consider soon. I'm not making a motion to that effect now, but it's just I'd like to draw that to the council's attention.
Okay. Is there any other points the council would like to bring forward from the consent agenda? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, also, and another motion for this, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives check 502250 of the item 4.21 for information. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reeve Campbell and Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. James there.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, basically, it's just so. Whenever you're ready, James.
Oh, great! Thanks very much.
That it was short before we got you on to the agenda.
Good stuff. Well, I hope I'm not too late. You're right on time this evening. That's a good sign. So thanks very much for having me. My name is James Cognac. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Environment at Bruce Power. And I understand that following a series of recent dialogues, in particular driven by economic development items, there was an interest in an update in what we have going on at Bruce Power, what our investment program looks like, what it's going to mean to the community, and what it's going to mean to the region from an economic development perspective. So looking forward to giving you an update on that this evening. So first and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about what our business plan is as a company. So, sometimes I find that when I give talks in Toronto and other places like that, people think anything north of Orangeville is Northern Ontario. And so they often forget that in a lot of these urban centers that a huge portion of the province's electricity actually comes from our facility located in Great Bruce and Huron counties. And so we think about, what is our business plan as a nuclear operator? Obviously safety first and foremost is at the core of the business we operate. The safest nuclear plants in the world are also the most commercially successful nuclear plants. And so, and that makes a lot of sense when you think about it practically, right? Because what is a safe nuclear plant? A safe nuclear plant is a plant that the equipment runs reliably as per plan. And a safe nuclear plant is when people are working in the plant, they're doing the right things based on the procedures and the approaches that have been adopted over many, many years. And so when people operate safely, when the equipment operates safely, and people carry out their job safely, it means the plant runs well. And that really ties in with operational excellence. And I'll talk more about that as we go through the presentation and what that means for economic development. But a big focus in our business is also project excellence. Project performance is a very big area in our business, and I'll get into that more later. But the way I would look at this is, if you think about it, decades and decades ago, Ontario Hydro was one of the world's largest construction companies. And they went in all throughout the province, built transmission lines, hydro dams, nuclear plants, coal plants, a massive construction company that went and built all these assets. And then they transitioned to a company when they were done building all that infrastructure that went and operated these facilities and these plants. If you think about where Bruce Power is today, we need to do both. We need to operate our plants safely and reliably while we are investing in the life extension of the assets. So we're doing something that I would say has never been done before. And again, I'll talk more about that. And then, of course, people and community. I would, folks from the municipality here would know better than I, but of our 4,200 base employees, well, a majority of them are based in the immediate vicinity around the site, about a 20 or 30 kilometer radius. More and more as our workforce is ramping up, we are seeing more and more people come from, in particular, the Goderich area, Northern Huron County, and west of Owen Sound. And so, the people element of our business is really important as well, because we're making investments today to see our plant operate till 2064. I'll even be around maybe in 2064. It's a long way away. So as we're investing in assets that are going to be here for 30, 40, 50 years, the investment in our workforce is really important. It's a highly skilled workforce. And so we're looking at 1 or 2 generations of employees that we're training as we work. Just speaking from experience, my dad worked his entire career at Bruce Power as a chemical operator and a firefighter, retired as a firefighter a number of years ago. I now have a great career at Bruce Power, and I'm hoping my daughter, who's 5 or 6 years old, may choose a career at Bruce Power. There's not many companies these days where you have generation after generation can work in the same factory with a good pension and a good career, and we're very proud of that. I want to talk a little bit about Ontario's energy mix. Obviously, electricity is an interesting topic in the politics of the day, and I don't ever get involved in that. I talk about our piece of it because we're proud of our piece of it. But if you check right now in Ontario, nuclear would be producing about 60% of our electricity as we speak right now, and Bruce Power is 30 of that 60. So we're a very large portion of Ontario's electricity. And actually 85% of Ontario's electricity comes from base load, reliable, low cost sources of nuclear and hydro. We have gas generation, which accounts for a small peaking capacity, and then wind generation. Solar is so minimal that it doesn't even really register as a percent. It would be a rounding error on this chart. But the most important issue is how much do people pay for electricity? How much does electricity cost? I'm going to talk about the economic benefits of what we're doing, but at Bruce Power, we're always really keen to have a dialogue about energy prices, because even though we're spending billions and billions of dollars on our asset, and we have a relatively high fixed cost to our business because we have a lot of people and a lot of infrastructure to support the operation, keep in mind we're also producing massive volumes of electricity every day. And so what this is the 2017 independent information from the Ontario Energy Board. And so you look at it, the average residential price paid for electricity was 11 cents last year. And you see nuclear, which includes Bruce Power and OPG's output, at 6.6 cents per kilowatt hour. So what I always like to say to people, I wish you could run an extension cord from your business, your house, or your farm to Bruce Power and charge you 6.6 cents. Unfortunately, you can't do that. But if we did, your bill would be substantially less expensive. And that 6.6 cents, that covers everything. There's no hidden subsidies. There's no revenue we get from anything else. We pay for our waste. We pay for our decommissioning, all of our capital, all of our employees. Every single cost you can imagine is in that 6.6 cents. So the reason why I always put this up is that I say, if you're concerned about the high electricity prices in Ontario, nuclear is part of the solution to that problem. We're not demonizing the other sources. What we're saying is, if you want to have a stable base load, if you don't like nuclear and you want to replace it with something else, you have to look at what does that economic analysis look like, because we're a low cost producer. So in terms of some key updates, if we think about where we are as a company and what are some of our key focus areas, I always like to look at our site as if you are running a taxi business. And you have in your taxi business, you have 8 taxis, and you make your money if you safely are riding 8 taxis around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And you want those taxis on the road running safely and reliably all the time. And so we have 8 nuclear units, which I call our taxis. But at some point in time, those taxis, because they were bought 20 years ago, 15 years ago, they need to be life extended. They need a new transmission. They need a new fuel tank. So when Bruce Power talks about this is my restart. Is that my warning? I'm talking too much. If we look at our units, each of these taxis that are running, at a certain point in time, we need to take them out of service, take them off the road, take them offline, and go and invest in them. So when we talk about our life extension program at Bruce Power, it's a $13 billion program. You say that quick, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it is a lot of money. Over the next 20 years, we will spend $13 billion, and across all 8 of those units, sequentially invest in them. So they run for another 30 to 35 years each. And by the end of that period, we will have a fleet of reactors that the furthest unit will go to 2064. So we have a construction program that is underway now. It started on January 1st, 2016. It's on time, on budget, and it will run till 2036. And it will sequentially go and invest in all of those units. So when we talk about our Regional Economic Development Initiative, which I know there is some interest in, what does that mean? Bruce Power's goal is we want that money to stay local. So we want, when we talk about, we partner with the County of Huron, the County of Bruce, and the County of Grey. So when we are contracting out to companies to carry out this construction work, we're saying we want you based locally. When we're talking about engineers and technical staff who are going to support this program, we don't want them traveling back and forth to Toronto on weekends. We want them to have a family here, be located here, be part of the community. And that's really what this economic development initiative we've done with the 3 counties is all about. And we have about 20 suppliers now have relocated from the Greater Toronto area to the Bruce region. And that'll really benefit our local economies, because not only are those companies setting up shop here, but their people are, and that money is getting spent locally in the economy. And that's very important for us. But obviously we have a real, it's a good thing to do for the community, but we have also a significant business reason for that. For all intents and purposes, if our organization is not successful, it's a challenge to the economy in our area. And we want people who are working in the plant to be part of the community and wanting to see that community prosper long term. And so that's going to continue to be a key focus of ours. Another key area that we're continuing to emerge on, and it's actually a global role, is producing medical isotopes. Medical isotope production is one of those things that Canada actually has an international leading role on. We provide the bulk of the world's what we call cobalt-60 for sterilization. So if you've ever been in an operating room, when you go into an operating room, you count on the fact that every single thing that surgeon is using on you is sterile. 30, 40 years ago, people were going in and getting day surgeries, and actually infection rates were really high, and people actually had a higher health risk of getting an infection after a surgery than what the surgery or procedure was related to. And so by advancing medical isotopes, and the vast majority of it produced at Bruce Power, we're selling this cobalt-60 all over the world, and it is used to sterilize all medical equipment you see in hospitals, so it's clean. You're going to see us talk more about this role because it's a very strategic asset for us, in particular with these units here. And then, of course, a lot of work going on in the government's climate change initiative right now, enabling clean transportation, working with our peers at OPG, but more importantly, continuing to invest in the community and advocating for the role of nuclear. We're very fortunate in Ontario that we're a company that wants to be here 50 years. So we always like to say it's important that we're able to work with all parties, with all ideologies, with all people who could be making public policy. And the way we do that is by a very public outreach program. And you see in this chart here, support for refurbishment in Ontario is, at an all-time high last March, actually at 85%. Now, I don't know how many of you around the table got 85% of the vote in the last election, but I'm sure you would take that if you could get it. 85% works. So that's important because what we're trying to do is create broad public support for the nuclear fleet in the province, and that's the goal with that. And again, this is just looking at this from a riding perspective in terms of MPPs and MPs. So that's really my presentation. Wanted to provide the opportunity to answer any questions you may have about Bruce Power. The last thing I'll raise is we sent a document in advance. It's our 2018 license renewal briefing. One of the things that's very unique about Canada, provincial governments decide energy policy. They decide in that pie chart how much is nuclear, how much is hydro, how much is wind, how much is solar, how much is gas, if you want coal. Provincial governments decide that. The federal government in Canada regulates the safety of the nuclear industry. And that's a very important distinction. So when the independent Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission is giving us a license to operate, they're not doing it with a view of we want nuclear power. It's the province's responsibility. They're doing it with a view of saying, to the extent the province has decided there's going to be nuclear power, our job is to make sure nuclear power plants operate safely and reliably. And so we are going through a process right now to get a 10-year license from the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to run our units another 10 years. We have to go on a frequent basis. And all these investments I'm talking about will be enabled through that license renewal process. So it's a very comprehensive process. There'll be hearings starting next week. We'll be up in Ottawa. There'll be local hearings here in the month of May in Kincardine. And the CNSC is a quasi-judicial independent regulator. So it doesn't report to the minister, it reports to Parliament. So it's independent. It has the full force of a court, effectively, and it's independent of that. So it's an important process, and certainly the municipality or anybody as individuals, if you so choose, has the opportunity to participate in that public process. So that's the end of my presentation. I apologize if I was a few minutes late. I hope I didn't interrupt the agenda, and I'd be delighted to take any questions folks may have.
You were right on time, pretty well. Exactly.
You're just early. Okay.
Is there any questions for James? Councillor Knott.
Through yourself, I guess back to him. Are there? Do we have all the correct contact information for the community investment program and how to access that? Raina, have you got that information? Okay. Yeah, we can make sure we get that to our economic development committee.
Yeah, so maybe I can give you a sense just so folks know, because I'm happy to promote it, and this is a good forum to do that. So we have 3 community investment funds. We have a community investment sponsorship fund. It's $1.26 million annually. I know I got to do, we did some support for the Wingham Hospital very recently. Last year I was down to present a check as part of that effort, and they applied to that program and were successful. That's a 1.26 million annually. We have an Indigenous community investment fund for Métis and Indigenous and First Nations communities. And we have an environment and sustainability fund. You go to our website, it's an open process. Anybody can apply, and we articulate the criteria there.
Another quick question for you. Are you actually producing the isotope in cobalt-60 there now?
Yes.
There you are, right? So Chalk River is effectively finished now?
That's right. So we've been producing, there's really two kinds of isotopes we produce. We produce what we call LSA, low specific activity cobalt-60. We've been producing that for about 25 years, and that's what's used in the sterilization I talked about. You raise a good question on Chalk River, because Chalk River closes on March 31st of this year. And one of the key isotopes that Chalk River produces is what they call HSA cobalt, high specific activity cobalt. And I hope none of you have ever experienced this, but people, for example, now who have brain tumors, the way they treat or manage a brain tumor, if they can, is instead of surgically dealing with a brain tumor, now they use a gamma knife technology where they take 200 laser beams that all intersect at a point and eliminate a brain tumor. HSA cobalt, which was produced at Chalk River, was the only provider of this special cobalt. So we started making that 2 years ago, and we'll start harvesting it next year. And we're going to be producing a lot more.
Thank you.
It's not just, it's not a big business financial moneymaker for us. It's more of a, how do you, it's a societal requirement, but it reinforces the role as a strategic asset.
Yeah, I know the Chalk River was very important to the world medical community because there were only a limited number of sites that produced.
That's right.
So I'm glad that you're moving in that direction. That's good news. Thank you.
Other questions? It looks like you answered a number of the questions.
Good.
And I want to say thank you for coming, and that it's nice to have the relationship with Bruce Power. And we have, I'll say, a large number out of North Huron that are actually employed there, so that it's what happens at the Bruce definitely affects us as well. So that thank you very much for your presentation.
Great. Have a great council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving to 6.11, restricted acts of council or the lame duck period of council.
Thank you. So the purpose of this particular report is twofold. First of all, to provide some details regarding the lame duck period, as well as certain things that council is restricted from, certain actions that council is restricted from taking during that particular period, should it be determined that council is in what is called the lame duck position. So also the second part of the report is to propose a bylaw delegating authority to the CIO to perform those 4 tasks, which are the appointment or removal from office of any officer of the municipality, the hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality, the disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality which has a value exceeding $50,000 at the time of disposal, and making any expenditures or incurring any other liability which exceeds $50,000, not in the budget. So the proposed bylaw would only take effect if it is determined that with certainty that council is in lame duck, and it also stipulates that the CAO would report on any actions that are taken during that period. And the recommended motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the restricted acts of council, commonly known as lame duck periods report of the clerk/manager of IT for information purposes. And further, that the clerk is directed to prepare the necessary bylaw for the March 19th, 2018 council meeting, delegating authority to the chief administrative officer from July 27th, 2018 nomination date to December 3rd, 2018, which is the first council meeting after the period ends. And further, that the bylaw shall come into force in the event and if it is determined by the municipal clerk with certainty that less than 75% of the current members of council will be returning to sit on the new council after nomination day of the 2018 municipal elections.
You are moving,
Um,
and Councillor Sipe seconds. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor of the motion? Carry. Okay, 6.1.2, the licensing bylaw review. Richard?
So this particular report is to provide an overview of another proposed bylaw, and it's an update to the licensing bylaw, commonly referred to as the Hawkers and Peddlers bylaw. And there's quite a number of changes that are, well, the bylaw is almost brand new in the most parts. And so there are a few things that I'll highlight in the new bylaw. Those would be that in the current bylaw, it only specifies $200 per day / event, where in the new proposed bylaw, we're suggesting that an annual license be set up as well, and as well as a multi-vendor license for the larger events where there may be 100 vendors to come in, and the organizer would then be the one who would take out a single multi-vendor license and then look after getting some of the doing the legwork in terms of the insurance, collecting the insurance forms and that sort of thing, any inspections. And so if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, the motion for this one is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the March 5th, 2018 report of the clerk/manager of IT regarding licensing bylaw review for information purposes, and further that Council directs the clerk to prepare a final version of the updated licensing bylaw for consideration at the March 19th, 2018 council meeting.
Councillor
I
Vaughn?
move for discussion purposes.
Deputy Reeve Campbell seconds. Go ahead, Councillor Vaughn.
I'm wondering how this relates to citizens of North Huron. That is garage sales, perpetual garage sales, that sort of thing. Is there an application that comes under this regulation?
So there is a part of the bylaw that we have in here. So we tried to address as much as we could, or think of as many situations as we could and address those. And there is one in here, I can locate it, that specifies that sales that take place on an individual's own property would not fall under, would be exempt from the bylaw, or exempt from the fees of the bylaw. So, I mean, it would be difficult for us to know when someone is selling lemonade at the end of their driveway or whatever it happens to be, right? So, so there is an exemption in there for that sort of.
Councillor Vaughn?
So if a local resident is going door to door, that would be under this bylaw.
It doesn't. So we don't speak to door-to-door sales directly, but I guess it depends on. We'd have to. It would depend on the situation, right?
Okay.
Councillor Knott?
So my only concern, and back to Councillor Wadden's comments with regard to garage sales, I have no problem with them not having to, but I've seen in communities where there should be a stipulation within there that they happen on an occasional basis. Because I've seen places where the driveway fills with crap on the 1st of May and the crap is still there on the 31st of December. And they run a continual garage sales. And that should not be the case. So I think somehow we need to have a little bit of an inclusion here that these garage sales, which are exempted, are occasional, not permanent.
Happy to have that.
I think that that particular incident actually falls under zoning bylaw, not under a hawkers and peddlers bylaw. So if it were a complaints-driven issue where somebody were having that kind of perpetual garage sale out there under their driveway, I believe under the zoning, they have now changed the use of their residence to a commercial operation. So we can look into that for sure for the next meeting to get clarity on that. But I have a feeling it. I don't know if you guys have any other comment on that, but I have a feeling when we've been researching this before, that sort of had that late. But I'm speaking off the top of the back of my memory, so we'll for sure find that out for you.
So if we can just clarify that and make sure that we've got that covered, whether it's under property standards or zoning bylaw or wherever. I just think the zoning bylaw is sometimes a little clumsy to deal with that. That would be good.
Councillor Syed?
I was just going to say if it's inclusive of the holy man, the property standards bylaw, to me that would be no different than anything else we do with regards to property standards. You're an expectation of your properties to be upkept. So if it's not upkept, then I think you would fall under the same property standards issue that anybody else would have. So I think if staff comes back with making sure that we've got those bases covered, I'm okay with the way this reads. My question or my concern is that it's still it would still fall under the municipality to, if we provide the license for the multi-vendor license, it is still a requirement that we would have to get something from that vendor, that brand scheme, to make sure they followed that license, or there would be fines, obviously. The problem is that with every bylaw, my concern is always how do we properly impact the bylaw the way it's meant to be and make sure that it is enforceable. That's it. It's great to have a bylaw, and it's great to have, but if you can't enforce it or you're not going to enforce it, then the bylaw is useless. So I think if we have the procedures out there, or the responsibility of how that's going to flow, and from issuing the license to ensuring they're following the procedures of the bylaw, then I think I'm okay with it. I think we just got to make sure it's enforceable and that it's followed through.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Moving to 6.2.1, 2017, additional transfers to reserves. Donna, would you like to take that?
Yes, thank you. So as we were preparing for the year-end audit, and the auditors are here this week, so and reviewing our year-to-date, we have the opportunity to make a few more transfers to reserve. Some were in the budget and weren't on my first list, and so I'm just catching them up on this list. So the first one is for the police department this year. As we know, whatever decision gets made with the police department, we want to set up a reserve for to deal with future expenses there, one way or the other. And so this year, the police department had an overall reduction in the deficit of $24,000. So I'm recommending that get put into a future reserve. The Wingham landfill had very successful tipping fees. Actually, they had additional revenue of about $100,000 for tipping fees. So I'm recommending that about $75,000 be put into a future equipment reserve to replace the bow mag out there. We did have a lot sale that took place late in December, so I'm recommending that the proceeds from that lot sale be put into future reserves. For the election expense, as you know, we have an election in the 2018 this fall, and we had $5,000 from the expenses in 2017 that we want to bring forward, and they're included in the 2018 budget. Public Works fleet, we budget for through Pat's department to put about 14,772.50 away into future Public Works fleet purchases. And so then, once our audit is confirmed, our overall surplus would be 14,797.35, and our historical practice has been to transfer that into our tax stabilization reserve for future use. So that's a total of additional reserves of 178,569.85. Are there any questions?
Councillor Knott,
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Hallahan, second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thanks, Donna. Okay, 6.3.1, Wingham Lions Santa Claus Parade. Pat, do you want to lead off on that?
So, council received a request from the Wingham Lions to consider offsetting the cost of their additional insurance required to operate the parade. This report provides a lot of background information about the overall costs of the parade. And there's an attachment to show the expenses both already for the Lions and for the Township of North Huron. The recommendation is that we continue to, from BFL Canada, which is our insurance company, that the Lions continue to purchase the additional coverage to supply them with $5 million general liability insurance for the event at an approximate cost of $300. I'm not sure if there's any questions about the report or the background information, but basically the insurance company is recommending that the Lions do have their own policy and that it be $5 million. And through our facility renter program, they're able to get that at a good discount. They're not required to purchase it through that program. They could purchase it on their own from another insurance provider, but that is the recommendation.
Councillor Vauden?
I'd like to thank Pat for this report. It's very, very well put together. I'd like to move the approval.
Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga, seconding. Councillor Singh.
I just want to make a comment. So I have not had any conversation with the Wingham Lions Club at this point, but I will be contacting them after tonight, no matter what the decision of council is, and I will be providing them half of whatever costs that they would have from their additional costs for insurance. I will be covering as part of my requirement on council. So I just want to let council be aware of that. I will be covering half of the $300 if that is so choosing.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Moving to 6.5.1, comments on the proposed draft fire service regulations. Matt, would you want to make some general comments on that?
Very general comments. There's a proposed draft regulations from the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act for Ontario, some of which may impact us more so than others financially. What they're proposing is mandatory reporting done through council to the Fire Marshal's office. That's something we've done on a continuous and yearly basis, so really not a significant impact whatsoever. We've given those reports, and through the utilization of FirePro, it's a very easy job for us to extrapolate any information to give to that. The second one is a trickier one, and that's based upon mandatory requirements and certification of firefighters for the province of Ontario. Some of this may be driven by full-time departments number of years ago, there was a factor of 10 and 10 where they required 10 firefighters to respond to the scene of an emergency within 10 minutes. There's a lot of limiting factors for rural departments. Obviously, in the report, it's distance to the emergency. The maximum distance for the Wingham station to its most outlying area is 19 kilometers, whereas in Blythe it's 24 kilometers. So it's pretty difficult. And of course, that's on worst case scenario, when it's pretty difficult to get there in 10 minutes, considering we have speed with our fire trucks. Road conditions, weather, there's a multitude of factors that come into play. It may be a way that full-time departments are trying to kind of push their way in and have requirements, you know, throughout everywhere throughout Ontario. That I can't really make a claim on. There's the financial impact of that for their certification could be quite severe. Our daily fire rate of training is approximately $4,400 per day if we have all 44 firefighters trained, and that's at a rate of $100 per day per firefighter. I don't know. I would have to revert to Chad to see where we are at the grandfathering process to know exactly at which level everyone would have to go through, but the cost would still be fairly significant. The recommendation I would make as a comment would be that if we could get ahead of the curve, I guess you can say, if they are going to require it, perhaps we could train a couple of individuals within our own department to offer that training internally rather than have to go externally and try to avoid a lot of this cost. We've always been in the forefront of training with North Huron, and I think we can remain that way and save ourselves a lot of money.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Chad, or?
No, Matt did a great job on the report.
So the recommendation with that report is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby authorizes Deputy Chief Matt Townsend to provide the following comments on behalf of the Township of North Huron on the proposed draft regulation changes of the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act.
Councillor Hallahan, Deputy Reeve Campbell, I take your moving and seconding.
I have a question. This is a matter that affects rural communities with volunteer fire brigade. Is the calling for this as a problem, trying to raise the problem by us, is not going to have a very strong voice. Is there an organization that will put this kind of issue forward, representing volunteer fire brigades?
The majority of firefighters in the province of Ontario are volunteer. For them to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to the situation of the volunteer would be a mistake on their behalf. I think through the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs and the Firefighters Association of Ontario, they would squash any of those issues. I think a lot of these issues, and perhaps one of the one thing I didn't touch base on, the mandatory reporting may be an issue where there may be some reactive departments in Ontario, perhaps some of the more underutilized areas, that may not feel the need to do the reporting and only give the reporting when forced. And I think this is perhaps the Fire Marshal's Office way of getting that information by enforcement of their own counsel. Perhaps they're getting sick and tired of chasing people and, trying to squash it by having counsel chasing one. A little more downloading, that's what you want to hear.
Councillor Sight.
I do think Councillor Biden's made a good point. Maybe the conversation of having our information being vetted by those two sets of departments, being the Ontario Fire Chiefs Association and the Fires Association, to get their sense of this this information as well and have a mutual kind of package that goes, might have better, I know obviously, like, as you said, that they probably aren't going to turn a blind eye. However, if three, it's always the conversation, if three do it, maybe more do it. And I think that would be a good position from our perspective as well. So, like, if there has been a motion on the table, so I'll wait for that motion to go before me or Brock mentions another one.
Dwayne,
Well, I'll just mention, so the Association of Municipalities of Ontario is currently reviewing this legislation, and they're preparing a submission to the ministry as well. So I think further to Matt's comments, in addition to the fire associations, in terms of the comments that we're providing, we'll also provide them to AMO, and that'll add to other municipalities that have rural fire departments. It'll then be all rolled into the submission that AMO presents to the ministry. So the ministry will actually get it twice, one from us directly, and then one as part of the AMO submission. So.
Yeah, and I might add, sorry, as Chad had mentioned to me, the deputy chiefs and neighboring chiefs have spoken in depth, and it pretty much mirrors what other departments are saying as well.
okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, all in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Moving to 6.61, Whitfield Municipal Drain. Kirk?
Good evening, council. Okay, my report before council tonight is on the Whitfield drain. February 20th council meeting, council asked that the drainage superintendent go ahead and assess the existing shape of the drain. It was accompanied by Public Works Director Sean McGee, and we walked the Whitfield drain from Victoria Street. On this map, it's very hard to see. I apologize. The bottom end street is Victoria Street, probably known as Thule Street now, where the pump house is. We walked it up to the top end of North Street. And a little bit of history for council here on the Whitfield drain. The Whitfield drain was constructed in 1953. The upstream end, you'll see, is the west of Highway 4. There we go, up there. Starts in a 6-inch tile, comes into an 8-inch tile and a 10-inch tile. Goes into a catch basin on the west side of Highway 4, crosses the roadside Highway 4 culvert into a catch basin on the east side of 4, coming through a little bit of land in Morris Turnberry, and then entering into a 12-inch closed pipe in the urban boundary of Blythe, and making its way to the Blythe Creek. In reading the report, the 15-inch pipe, which is at the bottom end of the drain, was to stop at station 52. So if we use Victoria Street or Thule Street as a reference to the north side, that station is station 54 is on the north side of Victoria Street, where it's referenced as between lot 139 and 140. Station 50 is the rear lot line of lot 139. So in the original report in 1953, that 15-inch corrugated steel pipe was supposed to stop at station 52, which would be halfway between the rear lot line of 139 and the front lot line of 139. And right now, that is an open ditch or an open drain. The pipe's not there. Reading the report in 1977 and 2001, The report by the engineers at that time, the 77 report was done by Gansby and Manuel, and the 2001 report was done by Burnside Engineering. They don't ever think that the drain was actually constructed as per the 1953 report, that it was put in as an open ditch and left that way through all of 139, and then coming on down on an angle right to Blythe Creek. Of course, there's a road crossing at Victoria, Thule Street, where there's a 48-inch culvert, and there's an open drain area, and then eventually going into a 48-inch culvert again through what we would call Water Street and outletting directly into the Blythe Creek. So touch base on the 77 report, and that was prepared under Section 66 of the Drainage Act to permit other lands. So we go back to the original screen. At the top end, the upstream end, in 77, there was an additional 22 acres put into that closed pipe system. And in 77, the engineer at that time already indicated that the closed pipe system was insufficient in size. However, the lands upstream at the top end were relatively flat. So they didn't figure that a negative impact would be, any negative impact would be on the closed pipe system down below. In 2001, RJ Burnside Limited did a report, and through several meetings with landowners in the village of Blythe, information meetings, and they were to prepare a report under Section 78 of the Drainage Act for repairs and improvements to the Whitfield drain. Again, there was a site meeting, great attendance. The majority of the problem was between Thule, Victoria Street, and North Street. There was blowouts in the closed pipe system at that time. And judging by the extent of the erosion, the tile had been impaired for quite some time. So there's a fair bit of erosion that has happened to the east side of the Whitfield drain. And I'll take you into some pictures here as I go through the report. Where a lot of overland water, possibly water from blowouts, has went to the east, eroded a decent sized channel, and made its way to the open drain. I can't say a drain, open ditch, open swale that is between lot 139 and 140. Only minor repairs were done at that time, so they decided not to go with the Section 78 report. Municipal representatives at that time and the landowners decided just to go with the repairs to the existing drain, most likely due to cost. So on February 23rd, again, Sean, me, and myself, we walked the drain, and I'll take you through some of the pictures here of the drain now. So this would be standing, I can say, on Mr. Thalen's property, looking south towards Blythe Creek. That is a 48-inch culvert that would outlet directly into the Blythe Creek. Again, same picture. Now I've turned around, so I'm facing north here on Mr. Thalen's property. And that's a 48-inch culvert there. That culvert goes through Mr. Thalen's property and is actually the road crossing underneath Thule Street. This is outletting onto Mr. Thalen's property, 48-inch culvert, and right there it's eroded on the bottom side, so it's actually starting to scour the underside of that 48-inch culvert there. Now I'm standing on the north side of Thule, looking north. And keeping in mind where my picture started, and as we work north, we're going upstream now from the village of Blythe. This is not part of the municipal drain. It's just an open ditch. So we can't do any maintenance work on the first two slides I showed. This here is also not part of the Whitfield drain. So this will just be an open ditch. And we can see some slumpage there. This is Mr. Utley's property on the left-hand side. There's a bit of slumpage there, bank slumpage. That, has happened over time. There's a fairly good growth of grass there. This here is erosion on the east side. And I believe this is Mr. Hockmeyer. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I'm not sure. I'm looking back to the south here from the bridge. Okay, so this here, we've got a Y there. So everything heading to the east, to the right-hand side, is the open ditch, we'll call it. And to the left, Mr. Utley's in that picture. Just beyond Mr. Utley there on the back bank where the rocks are is where the 15-inch corrugated steel pipe is, which is not flowing any water. So you can see the water coming down from the right. Let's do a blowout of the closed tile somewhere around Union Street, and we will get there.
But that's not part of the Whitfield drain there, then. That's a lie.
Right here?
Where the culvert's coming out there.
So if I review the 53 report, my opinion is that 15-inch corrugated pipe that is not shown should be extended to station 52, which would be approximately 20 feet, somewhere around there. So to me, the ditch was probably constructed that way, not as per the 1953 report, and 20 feet of that 15-inch corrugated pipe was never ever put in. But it just stopped a bit right there.
Okay. But to the left would be the Whitfield drain.
Yes.
And that water, right?
Yeah. There's the 15-inch corrugated steel pipe. Again, appears to be installed in the wrong areas for the engineer report from 1953, running very little water. All right, so right on the right-hand side at the middle, that's the same 15-inch CSP. There's a 12-inch concrete municipal drain, no water running out of that at the top end, which is clearly under a bunch of trees. We don't like to see that in today's standards. And all of that water running down from the left-hand side, as nice as it may sound, trickling down there, it is coming from a blowout further upstream, which we'll see here shortly. And there's a piece of 12-inch concrete pipe that's come detached from up top, just sitting there. That's a picture of the open ditch to the right. And based on the size of this channel, as we get further up, it's been eroding there for quite some time. Today I looked at the Huron County Web GIS system, and I flipped from 2010 aerial to the 2015 aerial, and there's a significant difference between the channel in 2010 to 2015. This is a picture. I'm looking south here on this picture. The house in the background is Mr. Utley's. We've kind of made our way up from that area. And that channel on the left-hand side is the open channel, swale, ditch, whatever you want to call it, not part of a municipal drain. Where I've drawn in that yellow line would be the approximate location of the Whitfield closed pipe system. Looking north now. This is your open ditch swale. Slumpage taking place. Will the video play, Richard?
I think so.
So I took a video of this here. So this is the blowout. That water is essentially just bubbling straight up out of the ground. Some of that water is going into the open channel on the east side, but the majority of that water is going down to the rear of the residential lots there and trickling down where that 12-inch concrete pipe is laying in the middle of nowhere. This here's another blowout. So soap suds, maybe we have an old gray water system that's tied into the closed pipe. This was a video as well. The soap suds were actually moving up and down. It was quite soothing to watch. We don't get to see that, sorry. Looking north again, so this is this open ditch swale again. Municipal drain, Whitfield drain would be to the left-hand side. Sorry, looking south from the north. I'll change that. The drain would be to the right. Again, some erosion. Approximate location of Mill Street. So Mill Street is an unopened road allowance which runs north and south. And this is the approximate location, roughly, of where North Street and Mill Street would intersect. And we have a catch basin here. This is at station 44. So this is, as per the engineer's report, this would be at the, east end of North Street. That's the catch basin. And what we have running at approximately 65 to 75% capacity. And that water was moving there very quickly and surcharging out of the ground at the blowout that we talked about. That's it. So just to summarize for council quickly, again, Sean and I assessed the closed drain. It does need some repairs. We do see 2 blowouts right now. The drain has stopped at that Y. So in my opinion, no maintenance work can take place from the end, which is the rear lot line of 139 and 140. We can't touch that for maintenance purposes all the way to the Blythe Creek. So what's there now is what it is. Certainly we can repair those blowouts when there's less water running through. Make it a lot easier. Yeah, Band-Aid solutions to the existing drain, and the drain is insufficient in capacity. So that's my report on or assessment on the drain itself. And willing to attempt to answer questions for council.
Councillor Knott?
When you say we can't do any repairs to it from 139 south, that's under the drainage, under the Drainage Act, under the actual Whitfield drain. That
Yes.
doesn't mean the municipality cannot repair that or reroute that somehow.
So that area from the rear lot line of 139 to the Blythe Creek, in my opinion, is not part of a municipal drain. It can be classified as an open ditch and maybe a natural water course, sure. Yeah. No maintenance work as per any engineer's report.
But we can do that under, just as the municipality, we can undertake to reroute that and fix that. Without, correct? We're gonna have to spend municipal money then, it's not gonna be part of the drain.
Right, so if you're maybe looking at getting that drain to sufficient outlet and proper outlet, that could be done under a section 78 report for repairs and improvements, which would be favorably seen if it was a landowner submit a request like that.
Councillor Hallahan?
So Kurt, maybe you might not be able to answer this, but why wouldn't that be municipal right to the outlet at the Blythe Creek? Why is it not included in the Whitfield drain?
You're right, I can't answer that. Honestly, I don't know. I read that 1953 report very thoroughly.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, and it clearly stops at the end of the 15-inch culvert clearly stops at station 5235, which is halfway between the front lot line and the rear lot line, approximately, of Mr. Utley and Hockmeyer's lot.
Deputy Reeve Campbell.
The new owner of the subdivision,
Mhm.
would he be sufficient to ask for repairs and maintenance done on this or under section 78?
It's
Or
my
does he have to have
understanding.
more names on the petition to do that?
No,
Okay.
not for section 78. Section 78 for repairs and improvements can be initiated by one person, and then it's clearly up to council to decide whether or not they want to proceed with appointing an engineer to prepare a 78 report for repairs and improvements. It's my understanding today, I did talk with the developer's consultant, and that the storm sewer catch basins in the proposed development will not be using any part of the closed Whitfield drain. It's clearly going to outlet into that natural channel, open ditch, all of the stormwater.
Okay, Councillor Vaughn.
I'm way out of my territory now, talking about drains, but the Whitfield drain ends at some place now legally. So what responsibility can we take in terms of hiring an engineer? Would it not involve the other members of the drain system?
Individuals that are assessed into the drain. So we'll go back to the very first slide. So that dark line to the outside of the municipal drain kind of meanders way out to the east and up to the top and around. That's your watershed boundary. So any water essentially falling from the sky landing inside that line, they're saying is going to make its way into that closed drain. So any repairs and improvements will be proportioned onto the landowners for that drain.
Even beyond what is part of the Whitfield drain?
No,
No.
only as per the Whitfield drain. So if we went in and we'll fix the repairs, we have to fix those blows that are there now. And when time and weather permits, we'll repair those. Those repair costs are assessed from that point there upstream to all the landowners that contribute any part of that water into that drainage system.
Councillor Knott.
So according to the reports from 77 to 2001, the drain actually isn't adequate in the first place, correct?
That's what it was stated in 77.
Nothing has been done to correct the situation.
No, there was an attempt in 2001.
Yeah. But we didn't accomplish anything. So we now have a subdivision going in, and part of that drain crosses right across, I think it was lot 14. Was it not? I believe in the developer's plan, it literally crosses the end of actually the very southeast lot in this proposed subdivision. The drain goes right through the corner of the lot.
So that's North Street there, and I'm pretty sure the development is north of North Street. And west of Mill, roughly.
So that little piece of drain that runs across North Street,
yeah,
in the developer's plans when we had them, that actually is a residential lot in his subdivision. So that drain is passing right through there. So that homeowner is going to be sitting with a drain in his backyard, running under his backyard.
But part of that drain, yeah, Mr. Dow's property?
No. Wow.
Or are you talking the new one?
I'm talking the new one.
New development.
That's the new development. That corner that you see the line right to the east, that's actually where the property line
is. If that drain there was put in the exact spot in 1953, I'm not sure how accurate that was. But when we look at the aerial photo right now, the open ditch is right on that corner of North End Mill, that top corner. So I'm going to say to the right-hand side of that closed pipe is where the open ditch is.
So we have a drainage problem and potentially a bigger problem with their subdivision. So we now need somebody who do we not need someone who is on the drain to request before we can ask for an engineer? Or can the municipality do that?
Under Section 78 of the Act, anybody in that area can request a Section 78, and council may as well. May.
So I'm going to recommend we follow the Huron investigate, looking at putting an engineer to work to take a look at this. Because I watched the subdivision being built somewhere else one time where they ignored this. And consequently, the problem was that after they built the subdivision, all the basements began to flood. The municipality ended up with a massive bill putting in sump pumps and drainage systems in basements that never have been if they had taken care of the situation prior to this. So I'm going to recommend that we, however we do, whether we investigate it or whatever we have to do to look at having an engineer take a good hard look at this and determine what needs to be done to make sure we don't end up in the same situation in 3, 4, 5 years.
Okay, Councillor Syke.
So the understanding that I got at when we asked for Kirk and Sean to walk the drain was we were concerned with the potential capacity of the drain with requirement of the subdivision. At least that's what I understood, but maybe I was wrong. The question is that Kirk has mentioned that according to the subdivision plan, they're not anticipating any water from that subdivision to use that drain at all. They're using the existing swale or open ditch. The question I have though is that open ditch, is the open ditch section of that able to hold the capacity of, if we've already got erosion now, is the potential for that to cake with the existing water, the additional water that may come in there from that subdivision, could it potentially collapse and therefore start the process of backing water up into the landowners north of it, I guess is my question. Councillor Knott has a different thought. I don't disagree with Councillor Knott's request. I guess my question is though, I thought the whole anticipation was we asked for that because we were concerned about the water from that subdivision going into the Whitfield drain, and we already assessed the issues with the Whitfield drain to begin with. So to me, it seems like it's two separate issues. It's the subdivision on its own merit with that open ditch, and the Whitfield drain on its own merit as well, I guess is where I see it. But I am not I'm not an expert.
Councillor Knott.
Okay, when I put forward the motion to have them do that, we were informed at the presentation from the developer and from the county that the capacity of the Whitfield drain was sufficient. My concern was the condition, because we had these blowouts down there, that it was sufficient, that's okay. However, if there was more water that did enter it, then we would have a bigger problem with the blowouts. Now it turns out we discovered that the capacity is not considered by previous engineers' reports to even be sufficient. So now we have two problems. One is the condition, and the other one is that two reports have said in the past 40 years that the drain itself is not of sufficient capacity, and that had nothing to do with the subdivision. That had to do more with the fact it was under-engineered to begin with, and then they added 22 acres on top of that. Now, potentially, could we have a problem? I don't know, but I think we should take a real good hard look at it, because spending of the money to examine that and determine that today is going to save us millions down the road.
Councillor Vaughn.
Also seems to me to be a very complicated matter that a lot of these problem areas are private property. And so does the responsibility fall to the owners of those properties, or is there a municipal responsibility there?
At the top end, the erosion is taking place on corner of Mill and North. Okay, and as we move south, a large stretch of that is on Mr. Dow's property. Okay, right from the corner of North Street, coming down.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so we got some erosion right there, and then a lot of erosion here, which is on Mr. Dow's, and then we're gonna go across Union Street, right, and that's eroded right there. And then we'll kind of make our way on a southerly west angle towards, well, right there, exactly as that's drawn in, right? Right there. That's all open. Right there is where the closed pipe system ends, right there. So,
is that Phelan's?
Phelan's is over here.
Oh.
Mr. Phelan is on the south side of Field Street, right, to the east of the dirt. So, to answer your question, Mr. Dow has a significant channel through his property, yes, and Mr. Dow also owns the other property to the south of that as well, so south of Union Street. So essentially, it's running through all of his property.
Deputy Reeve Campbell.
So an engineer was appointed in 2001, and the landowners didn't want to go ahead and do this work at that time.
Yep.
But it's come to the place where maybe the township has to go ahead and put some push behind this. I'm prepared to make the motion that we have up here at the top to appoint an engineer, and I'd appoint Tom Pridham, who had done the report in 2001, to come in and look at this and give us a report on the Whitfield Municipal Drain. I think that's what you're asking for here for repairs and maintenance.
If I could just add to that, so I think something needs to be looked at for sure. It's clear with the erosion that we have a lot of water coming down there, and possibly at a certain velocity. If we appoint an engineer under Section 78 of the Act, we should seriously look at getting that drain to sufficient and proper outlet so that we can do maintenance work on it. Right now, we can't touch that area from the back of Lot 139 to Blythe Creek. And in 2001 or 2002, I think Ralph Campbell, who was drainage superintendent at that time, applied to DFO to close that area in between Thule and Blythe Creek. And it was an absolute no, you're not doing that, you're not touching that. So, that's fine, but an open channel, and if it was a municipal drain, right, we can always maintain that and keep it in good working order. We'll have more water coming down from the right-hand side in that picture, as you see, because that water, that channel will be the channel that is supporting the development in Blythe. And we can talk to the engineer and see what options are available. Maybe we abandon that. Maybe we abandon that Whitfield drain. We know it's undersized. Maybe we abandon that and turn this natural water course or open ditch into a municipal drain. Then it's open, and then we can maintain it whenever we have to. Everybody has outlet, but those are discussions that we can have down the road. Maybe things to consider or think about. But I think most importantly is addressing the fact that it'd be nice to do any maintenance work from there the rear lot line of 139 that way to the benefit of the landowners in that area. If we don't do anything, they're going to continue to lose property and lose property and lose property. You know, certainly they're not here. I haven't heard from them yet, and you know, I just walked this stream the other day with Sean, so maybe that's a discussion that won't happen yet.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor,
But can we make it?
Yeah, we can continue discussion.
No, I just want to ask if it's okay that we leave out the appointment of a specific engineer and leave that to staff to bring forward a recommendation of who we appoint.
Well, it's just that Tom's already has a report that the farmers turned out.
Well, he'll be discussed, I would think. You know, we just don't want to tie hands if there's a problem or get this done as quick as possible. That makes sense.
Councillor Hallahan.
I think we should, yeah, definitely appoint an engineer. It's a mess. It's been a mess all the way through here, so I'm thinking the engineer that we appoint should be the engineer that we're using in the township. Dietrich Engineering, that we have been using, because we've got 3 different reports here from 3 different engineering firms, so why not start it fresh and use an engineer that we're using? Change it.
It'd be nice to maybe talk to a few firms out there and see what the workload is.
I
instead
think
of
we
appointing.
skip which engineering firm at this time, and we get some information as to some of them might be able to provide more information than others on this particular section. But the way I look at it, the interpretation of a proper outlet has probably changed since this was originally done. And that is one of the big problems of it. And I think we have to, whoever the engineering firm is, we have to take that into consideration as to getting to the proper outlet.
I think we also have a time factor involved here. We
Yes.
have a person here who wants to get moving ahead, and this is his property that we're working around with. And I think that the longer we stall things, I know what you guys are saying, but I don't want to see us lose out in this other at the same time.
I think if knowing the amount of water that's going to come from the development, we know that. Certainly, you know, I don't see any reason why it would halt the start of development when we know very well that we have certain numbers that we have to meet. And they can do those calculations, right?
So for the motion, we pull out naming any engineer. We have staff contact engineering firms as to how they see what they could provide for us. And if need be, that we can do everything we can to speed the process up. But some of those engineering firms, it might be the best part of 2 weeks before they'd be able to give an educated guess as to what they might be able to do for us in this situation. So is there any further comments on? Richard?
I was just going to suggest that, just to make sure that I'm understanding the motion correctly. Just a add-on to the recommendation that Kirk has already provided, something similar to that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby consider appointing an engineer under Section 78(1) of the Drainage Act, requesting a report for repairs and improvements to the Whitfield Municipal Drain, and further that the drainage superintendent is directed to investigate availability of engineers and report back to council.
Is council agreeable? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving to 6.7.1, the Liberal Credit Union Growing Prosperity Fund draft application. Maureen?
Sure. So Libro has every year they have the Growing Prosperity Fund, and they invite applications up to $10,000 each per branch. So I recently attended, along with Councillor Ritzman-Taninga, the Wingham AGM, Wingham BIA AGM meeting. And through that, it became evident to me that the Wingham BIA has set aside $2,500 for entrepreneurial development. And the question was in terms of how could they utilize those funds. So Libro branch manager was in attendance and led into discussions. Anyways, I'm sure most if not all of you are familiar with the win the space concept out of the municipality of Huron East. So what you have before you is a draft application to the Libro Prosperity Fund for a win the space concept for Wingham. And you'll also see there's one there for Blythe as well. So it's we're proposing an application to the Wingham branch for Wingham, and then we're proposing an application to Clinton for Blythe, is how we're proposing to do it. In terms of administration or delivery of the program, obviously that takes staff resources. But we reached out to the Huron Community Futures Development Corporation, and they've indicated that they will provide us at a cost, minimal cost, however, with an individual or consultant who would assist us in the administration of this for about a day to a day and a half a week. I've spoken with Blythe BAA to find out their interest. They, as a board, have not met, but I did speak with the chair. The chair indicated that she felt that the Blythe BAA would be very supportive of the application as well. So as you see in your application, it's proposing we would make an application to each of the respective branches for $10,000. Each of the BAs would be asked to contribute $2,500 each. We're asking the Huron Community Futures to contribute $500. And this was discussed with the Economic Development Committee, and the Economic Development Committee passed a motion recommending that council set aside $5,000 per application, so $10,000 in total, as the township's contribution towards this program. In terms of the training that is involved, the Huron Community Futures has indicated, as they have done with Huron East, that they would provide all the training for the individuals in terms of the mentoring, the coaching, the workshops, and that sort of thing. So very much behind it. I've spoken with Jan Hawley, and she indicated she would be quite willing to come and talk to council further if we wish. Application deadline for these is March 15th, however, so we have a bit of a timeline around that. So that's any questions? Oh, I maybe just mentioned that Town of Minto made a similar application in 2016. They were successful with their application. They did receive $10,000 through the Libro Fund. And they were invited down to the Libro executive board meeting, as I understand, to present the project and the outcome of their project down to London to the board. The board was liked very much what came out of it. To the point that the Listowel Business Improvement Association made an application in 2017. They too were successful, and they're currently administering their program at the present time as we speak. So, it's looking, we have two applications ahead of us and that have been received support, and so we're hopeful that our application will be funded as well. So what we're looking for is, what I'm looking for, I guess, would be a motion from council supporting the applications, and then also a commitment to set aside $10,000 from the Economic Development Fund, $5,000 for each to fund that program.
Councillor Knott is moving,
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Vodden seconding.
I would like to make a comment, just,
Go ahead.
just to clarify for people and those that are in the gallery, that this program, although it's one person wins that space, there are a group of people invited, and this is actually a really good opportunity for us to have young people involved who maybe have a business idea. They come in and they will actually be trained on how to write the business plan and how to go through the application process for this. So it will teach a large group of people. Although there's only one winner in the end, there are quite a large group of people who will have the opportunity to get training they would not normally get anywhere else at no cost to them. So it's a good opportunity for anybody within the municipality, not just young people, but they're a good source of these things, and our young ones with good ideas. So it's a good program.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Moving to correspondence. 7.1, the William Hetland team request, Richard?
So the recommendation with this piece of correspondence is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby supports the Wingate and basketball teams in making application to the LCBO for a special location permit to hold a beer garden at Riverside Park and Libro Field in conjunction with the slow pitch tournament to be held on July 20th, 21st, and 22nd of 2018. And further, that council proclaims the event of municipal significance. And further, that council authorizes an exemption to noise control bylaw 2009, extending the noise bylaw from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on the dates of July 20th and 21st, 2018.
So moved.
Councillor Hallahan, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Okay. 7.2, Morris Turnberry, notice of public meeting concerning a proposed minor variance.
So the notice was received as a piece of correspondence, and unless the council has any comments or concerns to forward to Morris Turnberry, the recommendation would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron have no concerns regarding the proposed minor variance received February 26, 2018, as it relates to 125 Maitland Street, Wingham, and as submitted by the municipality of Morris Turnberry.
Do we have the mover? Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga and Deputy Reeve Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 7.3. It's another entry from Morris Turnberry, notice of public meeting concerning a proposed minor variance. Richard?
So another notice of public meeting for a proposed minor variance, and again, unless council has any comments or concerns to be forwarded, then the recommendation for this one as well is that the Council of the Township of North Huron have reviewed and have no concerns regarding the proposed minor variance received February 28th, 2018, as it relates to 160 Potter Street, Wingham, and as submitted by the municipality of Morris Turnberry.
Deputy Reeve Campbell. Councillor Hallahan, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving to council reports. Reeves activity report, and I think I'll keep it to that I attended the Blythe BIA annual meeting that was at exactly the same time as the Wingham BIA meeting. And one big concern from that was snow removal on from basically Main Street. That there was a number of ones that were at that meeting wanted it done daily rather than the scheduling such as in Wingham, where it's done Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I did make the comment, if that was to happen, there would probably be a surcharge to the Blythe ward for extra staffing, etc. I have mentioned this to Sean from Public Works, that not saying that it would be out of the question. There definitely would have to be a report put together at a later time and possibly further investigation as to whether that was a group of people or does it reflect the whole of the Blythe ward. I'll leave my comments at that for right now. Is there any other meetings or committees that council want to report on at this time? Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga?
Yeah, so on February 22nd, I think, whatever that Thursday was, the Wingham BIA had their AGM, and one of the fun parts of the AGM for me is always the awards presentation, and we were able to notice some businesses in our community for our outstanding work over the last year, 2017. The Lifetime Achievement Award we gave to Lauren and Margaret Humphrey of Bell's Pizza for being in business for over 40 years, and they recently retired this year. And it's still Bell's is under new ownership, so that's exciting that it will continue to go and move ahead. And then Volunteer of the Year, as it relates to the BIA, went to Chris Parks, who is always busy throughout the summer months, working hard at keeping the town looking nice with his weed whacker and lawnmower, which we really appreciate his help there. And then there was the Business of the Year award, and that went to Christine McGrath of Christine's Clothes Closet, and for all of her hard work and dedication over the last 37 years with her business. And of course, we made special mention of her work with the fashion shows and her donations to the hospital with those fashion shows that she puts on every spring and fall. And then for civic improvement, we actually honored 2 businesses this year, McDonough Insurance and Jules Designs and Earth Angel for facade upgrades. So it's always an exciting part of the evening. Moving to Alice Munro, next week, Thursday, March the 8th is International Women's Day, and we will be announcing on that day our lineup of authors. We chose that day because this year all of our authors, guest authors coming to Alice Munro Festival are women, and our tagline for this year is "Word has gotten out," and it directly or indirectly corresponds with the whole Me Too campaign that is going on. So we're really looking forward to the first weekend in June for the Alice Munro Festival. Normally the Saturday programming is held here in Wingham, but this year it will be in Bayfield, and Sunday will be here in Wingham. So looking forward to that.
Okay. Is there anything else? Okay. The next thing would be 10.1, bylaw number 14, 2018. Read that, Richard?
Sure. The motion for this item is that bylaw number 14, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to enter into an agreement for the sharing of building services with the municipality of Morris Turnberry, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Vodden, Councillor Syke. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. No announcements. Moving to other business. 12.1. It's over the Wingham Ward policing. Open for discussion. There is 2 different motions here. that council chooses one, which way we go. Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga,
I would like to put forward the second motion that we keep the Wingham Police Service.
I'll second that motion.
okay. Councillor Knott, second. Discussion. Go ahead, Deputy Reeve.
I'd like to call for a recorded vote. When we vote on this motion.
Noted. Discussion. Councillor Syke.
So I just wanted to bring to public gallery and the questions that have come up around this. When this motion was brought forth 2 years ago, the intention was of this motion to understand the service that the ratepayers were paying for, understand the financial aspect of it, understand what we have that the Wingham Ward is providing and what the Wingham Police Service is providing. At no point from my discussion or from my request of that motion was it a discussion about whether the service was good or it wasn't. I have great respect for the service. I am the chair of the Police Services Board, so I take that with a very deep heart in the saying that I respect the fact, I respect the members of the association, I respect the police chief and what they do every day and provide to the Wingham ratepayers, because and I want to correct myself. It's not just the Wingham ratepayers that they're protecting every day. They're protecting a lot of people outside of the municipality that come into the municipality on a daily basis, at our schools, at our businesses, and that type of stuff. One of the concerns that I've had over the past 3 to 6 months is trying to mirror what the expectation of the Wingham public is with the understanding of where we are financially and where we are as it suits the municipality. We are at a crossroads, in my opinion, in the fact of where we are sitting with the level of services that we provide the Wingham ratepayers and the Wingham North Huron ratepayers as a whole. My always concern has been that, we keep having the level of service and costs are always going to go one way. They're going to go up. And not to say that the costs of any other alternative aren't going to be different or going to be better, but potentially to give us different flexibility. From a financial perspective, we have a lot of things within our asset management program that we have to pay for. There's no doubt in my mind, unless we figure out a way to manage those assets, we are going to be in a trouble with trying to figure out how we're going to manage our budgets in the next 2 to 5 to 10 years. Council can sit here. We've talked for the last 3 months with staff to try to figure out how to get an increase down to 5%. And that is fact. And it's not going to be any easier come the next year or the year after that or the year after that. So, I hope the fact is I hope we got what we wanted out of this exercise, because I think it was a good exercise. I've been up a lot of nights because of this exercise, and I hope and respect the fact that, it's a win-win for everybody after we've made this decision. Because the decision is made, we'll treat it as such. Whatever the motion is, I accept that as council. I accept the ratepayers and what they provided me, and their comments, and I respect that. So, I just hope that we can move forward with whatever decision we make. But understanding that there is going to be challenges, I think no matter what decision we make, there is going to be challenges going forward. So I just wanted to comment on that, Reeve, and for the public and for council. So thank you very much for your opportunity.
Anybody else? Councillor Knott.
I'm just going to make the comment that I appreciate the input from the residents of Wayne with what they wanted. And the discussion here and the decision here has nothing to do with Blythe or East Wallen or anything happening there. This is one we had to get over first. I would say that probably 85% of all the comments that came my way with regard to this from the Wingham residents, who are the ones that are going to pay this bill, was that they wanted to keep this. And I mean, quite frankly, regardless of my own personal feeling or anything else, that is a decision that has to be made, that that's what you want. And if the majority want it, that's up to you. So you get what you want. That does not mean down the road that we will never ever review this again. I'm sure it will come up again repeatedly. As far as the challenges, there doesn't matter which way we went, there would be challenges. And all we can do now is deal with those and we go forward. And, you know, we have an election coming. There's another potentially a different council. Maybe it'll be the same council. Who knows? But we will deal with those challenges and look for opportunities to try and reduce the cost. I really question whether or not if we had decided to go a different way and saved $500,000 a year, whether we really would have punched that back into the budget somewhere, or how we would have dealt with it, because I'd be second guessing the entire council. But as I say, I think the residents of Wingham were overwhelming in their response. And so move forward.
Okay, not seeing any other people wanting to vote. I will go to the clerk to go through a list of names and voting yes or no to the motion.
I want to read the motion again, please.
Richard, please.
The motion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron thanks the Ontario Provincial Police for the contract policing proposal prepared by Sergeant Colbert Diot, originally dated September 25th, 2017, and revised on March 1st, 2018, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby maintains the service provided by Wingham Police Service and directs staff to communicate Council's decision to the Ontario Provincial Police. So we will proceed with the recorded votes. To my right, Deputy Reeve Campbell.
Yes.
Councillor Hallahan.
Yes.
Councillor Knott.
Yes.
Councillor Vodden.
Yes.
Councillor Syke.
No.
Councillor Ritz-Matinga.
Yes.
Reeve Vincent.
Yes.
Motion is carried with 6 yeses and 1 no.
Okay. I think 12.1.1 is a mute point at this time, so that moving to point 13 on the agenda, the closed session and reporting out, and that there's reporting on property standards and a code of conduct complaint that will be dealt with in camera. Do I have a motion to go in camera? Councillor Vaughn, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. We will